what do you give out? So the people that you have in your circle should be pouring into you, and you should be pouring into them. Um, and that's how life flows. Because if you're not a better person from knowing me, then I'm doing something wrong, right?
Right.
I'm not enhancing your life in the way that I should. So I try to surround myself by women and men who are very volunteer oriented, who are part of our church. I work with a lot of groups here in Atlanta. I'm part of the Junior League of Atlanta. I'm a prospective candidate for the Top Ladies of Distinction, which is a national organization. So is a Junior League. And I work with teens and grief counseling, things like that. So I try to surround myself around people that can understand that like to work with teens, like to work with our underserved communities, and are very action oriented.
Hello, welcome to Scrubs Unzipped. Today I have a very special guest, Miss Jessica. Hi, Jessica. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I
Fabulous, I
am.
should say.
I love fabulous. Fabulous is awesome, and we met on Facebook because
Yes.
like a year or two ago, you posted in the the respiratory therapy Facebook group, and I was like, I want to connect with you, and that's why you're here today.
Thank you. I'm so glad to see all the beautiful things that you're doing. Because I know you were fairly new to Georgia and just trying to get like inside Georgia and understand the RT network here. And now I just see you thriving. I'm so happy for you.
Thank you. So tell the audience a little bit about yourself and how you became an RT and what you're
Oh,
doing now.
sure. Sure. So I've been an RT now, oh my goodness, 22 years.
Wow.
Seems like just yesterday I was in RT school. I started off as a CNA. So um,
Oh.
actually, even if I went back further,
Mm.
a lot of people don't know this, and I'm open to share. I was a high school dropout. I had
Oh.
some issues at home. Let me say that. My home life was very volatile. I'll put it that way. And so caused me at some point to be a homeless teenager. But I did have some other family, some support system. So they kind of helped me along the way. And one of my older siblings was a respiratory therapist and had been one for years. And when I became a CNA, I was like, oh, I don't think I want to do this. And she's like, hey, you should look into respiratory. At that time, she was teaching them. And it was kind of like, you know what? Why not? Let me see. I looked at that, looked at the nursing program because I knew where I was and wasn't where I was going to stay. And I really fell in love with just the interaction with the patient and the freedom. I like to move around. And that's the beautiful thing about respiratory. We're all over the place. We're like the Batman of healthcare. When you have a problem and you don't know what it is, they call us. And so I've done a little bit of everything in respiratory, from adult critical care to pediatrics to DME, home health. And then I kind of transitioned more into healthcare administration and case management because I realized, and this is before the Affordable Care Act, that patients didn't always understand their insurance or level of care or why they couldn't go different places. So just guiding them to ask the right questions. I really wanted to be a patient advocate. That's what caused me to go back to school, get my bachelor's degree, and then eventually my master's. And then I moved after that into business development. Worked as a clinical liaison, kind of worked my way up in the business development realm. And I've also been a director of respiratory, system director of respiratory. I've been kind of like an interim executive when the pandemic hit. So I go around to different hospitals and help them kind of standardize and develop protocols for patient care and practices and, just improve quality and also help with retention. And now I'm working for an industrial gas company that makes oxygen, and I'm their national business development manager.
Wow. Oh my goodness.
And that's just my day
Wow.
job. That's just the day job.
Wow. So, okay, so tell me about your current position
Sure.
Is it in Georgia or do you travel all over
I,
the United States?
I do. I travel. I get to travel. And I say that because the last couple of roles I've had, I've traveled and I said, I'm not traveling anymore. And then doggone it, I get another job where I'm traveling. But it's actually a beautiful thing. This one is more remote. So I have a nice little mix of home life and also travel. It's really an interesting role because we don't think about industrial gas. We don't think about how oxygen is made. I know I did. And I know that we had cylinders and we had big liquid oxygen tanks and in the back of the hospitals. And I helped fill home liquid oxygen tanks before Medicare kind of changed the requirements for that. But never thought well, how is oxygen made until I started working for this organization. And wow, it's really interesting how they pull it from the air. It's actually oxygen is actually a byproduct of them making nitrogen. Yeah.
Yeah, I never really knew that that was possible. Like, how did you get um how did you get that job? Like it seems like it's very specific. Like, were you looking for that job or did it come to you?
Oh. Yeah, it was one of those things. I saw it online. There was a recruiter had posted the position, and I said, I'm a respiratory therapist. I sell oxygen. I can sell oxygen because it was that, I was thinking oxygen, not bulk gas. And so that's the difference. So I was thinking more cylinder or what we call cylinder tanks in the bulk business. They call it a cylinder. And so the small gaseous form of oxygen, they're selling bulk liquid oxygen. And
Mm.
but also they do a lot of other things. You'd be surprised. I mean, they're in everything that you can think of. Anything that needs carbon dioxide, needs helium, xenon, argon, all of the gases in their various forms we make. So it was really helium. We're actually one of the largest helium suppliers. So really cool industry, and there's different segments. And I was just like, wow, I'm just in one segment, healthcare, and you would think healthcare would be the biggest. We're the biggest as far as oxygen consumption, but as far as the entire global company, because it is a global company, healthcare is the smallest. Yeah, because it's chicken actually. Don't it?
It's chicken.
We freeze a lot of chicken.
Oh, that's the in the industry.
In
So they
all
need
industries.
the
Yeah,
gas to make the chicken?
the freeze chicken. So when you think about different freezing temperatures, like nitrogen, carbon dioxide freezes at different levels, and that's what they use to make frozen chicken frozen because it has to be. We have to be able to consume it, and so it can't be detrimental to us when we consume it. So they have to find different gases that freeze at different temperatures so that they can, yeah, really interesting. But we also use it in
That
welding and it's just so many things. So I learned a lot, and I'm really excited about this because I think there's an opening for us to talk more about STEM in that sense, engineering, because most of my colleagues are civil engineers, chemical engineers. And I think there's an opportunity for us to kind of mentor some younger students and bring them into this world. Because, like you said, it is a very niche. And if you didn't know about it, like, how do you know you want to do this when you get older? Yeah.
yeah. So when you went to the interview, like, how did that go? Like, you obviously got the job, so what did you say? Like, I'm a respiratory therapist. I know all about oxygen.
Well, that's what kind of piqued their interest. And then I have, obviously I have a business background. So one, I've owned my own business. I've been in sales, healthcare sales for many years. So that was kind of the selling point, the fact that I knew the hospital side and being able to explain to different stakeholders. So because I was a hospital executive, I understand capital, understand how capital is spent, when capital is spent. My favorite sentence in the entire world, anytime anybody asked me anything, was "We have no capital." So since we have no money, so don't ask. We're not buying anything. No. And so, no, seriously, it was not now. How do we get there? How do we build the case? And so, understanding how to build the case, and when the hospitals are looking at their budget, when's the right time to talk to them about these capital expenditures and how important it is, and then giving them a perspective from the healthcare side because they were so used to the business side and the industry side, which is very different than healthcare. Healthcare is very title driven, very credential driven, and very expertise. So you know who's the subject matter expert, and why should I talk to you? And so getting them to understand that was, I think, the biggest selling point.
So did they want to use you to tap into more of the healthcare sector? Like they want to break into that sector?
So we have a fairly good market share, but I would say we're probably known better in other industries. And we're putting our name out there now. But yes, I think
Mm.
understanding the healthcare business, but also the way my organization does business too. Um, so I'm also in law school. So if I say this, sometimes we say, we have terms like risk averse. Hospitals
Mhm.
tend to be risk averse. My company
Mhm.
is risk averse, and sometimes they don't talk well with each other, if that makes sense,
Mm,
because they're
okay.
both risk averse. So being
Reverse.
able
Yeah.
to, yeah, to navigate that and say, oh, this is what they really mean. They don't mean what you think they mean. And the other side, let me interpret better for you. So that's really, I think, has been helpful for us to expand is understanding how, and I have a unique perspective of understanding how my organization thinks and the things that they'll do, because it's a lot of agreements. So most of my day is spent negotiating agreements or what you would call contracts.
Oh. And you said that you snuck that in there that you're studying to be a lawyer. How did that come about?
Oh goodness. So that started because of COVID. Um,
Mm.
I was a little burnt out during COVID, and right when COVID hit, I think I was a little jaded with healthcare, mentally, physically, emotionally, and I said, "What's going to fulfill me?" And my childhood dream was to be an attorney. So I decided at that point I don't really, I'm a planner, but not always when it comes to my personal life. Sometimes I can be a little impulsive. So I got up one morning and said, I'm going to take the LSAT. And I did the next day.
What? Oh my God.
So why not? The only thing I think, I'll see where my starting point is. But it was good enough for me to get into a couple laws.
Oh my God. Because I actually tried to study for the LSAT. Like wow, you're so smart. Like you took it without studying.
Oh no,
I'm
I probably should have
jealous.
studied. Whoever watches this, please know I'm not bragging. I should have studied, and I would have got a higher score. But I thought, you know, anything over 150, I thought was pretty decent to not to have studied. But I should. I mean, if I would have studied, I would have done a lot better. So I do not condone. I'm not advocating for you not to study. Study. Okay. There's Kaplan. There's a lot of places that you can get the 6 months. It's just I'm impulsive. Please don't follow in my footsteps.
Wow. So, so how long have you been in law school? Like when do you graduate?
I actually took a year off and transferred. I'm actually now
Mm.
starting back in August. So I was going to John Marshall here in Atlanta,
Huh.
which is a great school, by the way. I really loved everyone there. However, with my travel schedule and work, you can only miss so many days of school. So I'm transferring to Syracuse University, which has a JDI program. So it's a interactive online program. So you're actually in class, but remotely.
Oh,
So I
okay.
can travel. I can still travel and have a life. So it's unique. So I'm starting this year, and it's because it is online, still a 3 year program.
Okay. So you had a childhood, like being an attorney, and then it seems like respiratory just kind of like came in before. Like, do you have? You said you're. one of your
Sister.
family members or sister was a
Yes.
respiratory therapist?
Yes. Yes.
Oh, okay. So you chose respiratory even though being an attorney was like your childhood dream?
So I was a mom. So I also had a daughter. So one of the things that I think you look at is, okay, what's going to get you, how can you be stable? And especially understanding my childhood, I wanted to give my daughter a very stable life. And healthcare at that time, especially that time, was paying well. I had freedom and I fell in love with it after I got into school. And once I never thought I would leave healthcare. And even though I'm in law school, please know that it's going to be health law. I love healthcare. And I just think there's so many avenues and outlets for us as RTs and just anyone in healthcare to expand. So yeah, law school is there, but it's still health law.
Okay. And then you said so the pandemic caused you to be burned out. So
Yeah.
like when I'm burned out, I don't take the LSAT the next day. So uh how
Most people don't.
like how did you do that? Like yeah, like
Well,
what other impulse decisions have you made that have made you successful? Like give me the tea.
mm. So you know what? I tend to jump. I tend to leap. I'm one of. I've always been like that. It's part of it's that Sagittarius in me. We're the
Uh,
traveler of the zodiac sign, and we also tend to be um, strategic in some things. And then sometimes it's just like, you know what? I'm gonna throw everything at the wall, and the universe will make it right. It's just is kind of been
mm,
our philosophy. But no, it was something that I had been contemplating, but really this was more of a usually I think with my head and not with my heart. I kind of balance my heart and my
mm,
head. But this time I was in between. I was in a weird space because I was working as an RT on the floor. So I had my position as a system director, business development was eliminated. So now I'm reevaluating life
mm,
and not really knowing what was going to happen with the pandemic. And I said, you know what? If I'm going to do anything, I better do it now. I better make this decision to say, hey, don't live with regrets because that's the biggest thing.
mm,
I didn't want to 5 years, 10 years from now say, man, I wish I would have, why didn't
mm.
I? So that's really where that came from. As far as other impulse decisions, I jokingly, how I got into business development, a recruiter called me and was like, hey, would you like to be a clinical liaison? I said, I've never heard of that. Sure, sign me up. And actually, that was the best decision of my life. I was working as an RT, and I was like, I don't even know what that is, but it sounds good.
Wow. So I love how you just like jump at opportunities. Like, how did you learn to like, because most people are so afraid of change and
Change.
like doing the things they want to do because they have the fear. So, like, how did you deal with that? Or you're just fearless? Are you fearless?
No, well, let me say this. I'm so afraid of everything that I'm not afraid, if that makes sense. And what I mean by that is my dad, a lot of this came from my dad. He was really, had a bigger, larger than life personality, and everybody called him by his last name. You would have thought that was his first name, but it was really interesting. I was like, and so when people see me, even now, years later, like, oh, you like his daughter. That was just kind of the
Oh,
thing.
okay.
But he always said to me, you can't live life in fear. And you
Mm,
can't go to work in fear. You can't work in fear.
mm,
So if you're gonna live your life that way, you'll be strangled by that fear. You'll never be able to take a step forward. So I always taught myself, and I'm a big Dune fan, just, kind of, Frank Herbert. So, like, literally, I recite fear is the mind killer to myself, even to this day. Because if I'm afraid and I don't challenge myself, so I have a fear of heights. But I can tell you, I've probably gone mountain climbing. I've done bungee jumping. I've
Mhm.
done zip lining over a volcano. I have gone down water slides that I probably shouldn't have. And next on my list is jump out of airplane. I challenge myself to do the very thing that I'm afraid of doing.
Mm,
Um, because there will come a time in your life that sometimes you're afraid to take a step forward.
mm,
But if you let that fear paralyze you, you stay there. You know, it's like I'm one of those weird people that The Walking Dead is a thing to me. So I do believe
mm.
that there's a zombie apocalypse going to come one day. So I train my mind and spirit to believe that there's a zombie apocalypse coming. And what happens when it does? Am I going to be prepared?
Hmm. That is interesting. So you use your fear to like take action
Yes.
because I can tell you I've been skydiving before and it was amazing
How'd you
experience.
like it?
It
Would you do
was
it again?
uh, it would have to be with the right people. Like it was because I went with another friend. Like I think if it was like a group of people
Yeah.
and because who you go with matters. And I think in life, when you have people around you that can support you and they can handle the higher elevation, that just makes a big difference. So, who around you, like, who are your friends? Like, you're so smart. Like, how, like, who do you socialize with?
So I have a very great group of friends, and they're all unique in their own way, as all people are. But they come from different walks of life. I still have friends that I knew when I was young, impulsive teen on the south side of Chicago, west side of Chicago. So I have friends that I've known for 30 plus years, and I have friends that I've met since I've been here in Atlanta. Um, and they all add to my life. I'm a very big proponent on what do you give out. So the people that you have in your circle should be pouring into you, and you should be pouring into them. Um, and that's how life flows. Because if you're not a better person from knowing me, then I'm doing something wrong, right?
Mm,
I'm not enhancing your life in the way that I should. So I try to surround myself by women and men who are very volunteer oriented, who are part of our church. I work with a lot of groups here in Atlanta. I'm part of the Junior League of Atlanta. I'm a prospective candidate for the Top Ladies of Distinction, which is a national organization. So is the Junior League. And I work with teens and grief counseling, things like that. So I try to surround myself around people that can understand that like to work with teens, like to work with our underserved communities, and are very action oriented.
because I've heard that like this generation is like loneliness epidemic is like
Yeah.
really big. So how do you cultivate? Well, you said you pour into them and they pour into you. So even with your busy schedule, like how do you find the time to do that?
So I make the time, and I sound busier than I really am, except when people really ask me and they call me out on it. I'm like, no, I'm not really that busy. But I try. I feel like this. You make time for what's important to you. And interestingly enough, I was having this conversation with a friend of mine who's an Orisha, and she had made the comment that don't pour so much out of yourself that you don't keep enough for you. So don't pour all your water out, right? Don't pour all your blessings out, and don't keep enough for you. So it's good. You have to balance. And I try not to as much as I can overextend myself where I don't have my mindset and my time alone. I like alone time. I mean, Sagittarius, we tend to like our alone time,
Mhm.
but I like to read. So I'm big on. I try to read a book a week if I can,
Oh wow.
um, but I read. I don't read self help books. I know everybody does, and they're always telling me the next great book to read. I read Chinese wuxia novels, and I watch Chinese dramas because I want to escape from reality. I want But they're very specific in the archetype of the hero, and how they grow and develop throughout their course of cultivation, and how their mindset begins to grow, and the stronger they become, the less they want to show off, if that makes sense. The strongest person in the room appears to be the weakest.
Mhm.
And because they're the most humble, and they don't really have anything to prove, and they don't really care about proving things, and they want to be more one with nature. So that's kind of my philosophy in life. I don't really have much, I don't have anything, I'm not competing with anyone. So that makes life easy. And then also when you get to a point in your life where you're like, hey, I have everything inside of me that I need, you tend to be you tend to be okay in any situation.
Mm. Wow. And so you mentioned earlier that you had like a troubled childhood, and it seems like your adversity at an early age helped you be like this wonderful person. So how do you think adversity can be like your superpower?
That's a good question. So you can turn your trauma into triumph, um, because your test turns into your testimony, right? I always liken it to a car wash. I was remember listening to, I don't know if it was Pastor John Hanna. Um, I'm a Christian, so for everybody has their own religious beliefs, but I'm very spiritual,
Hmm.
and I'll say this. That's what helped me get through. And at the time, I probably didn't know that as a child, but I know I had a foundation in the church. Um, but I would say when you're going through a car wash, you don't take a clean car through the car wash, right? Um, and a coal doesn't become a diamond until it's had pressure, right? And so you have to go through some things to come out sparkly clean. You first sometimes have to get dirty to get clean. And I think for me, I remember saying this at my aunt's funeral. If it wasn't for what I went through, and I love my mother, I wouldn't be who I am today. So everything happened the way it was supposed to happen. Because of that, I was able to break some generational curses. I was able to look at my life and do things differently. Um, and I knew early on that this is what I wanted, something different. And so, with that being said, yeah, I probably wouldn't, if I had a choice, go through that again. But also, the same token, I'm okay that I went through it, because I went through it and I came out much better, and I'm able to empathize with other people that are going through things.
Do you think that helps you be a better, I guess, a better human because when you are RT, you're helping people. When you're an attorney, you're helping people, and it seems like you are a very helpful person. Like, does that help you?
Yes, and that's probably, you just pointed out something. That's probably, I remember a joke that I was a little young girl, and I said to my brother, I want to be an attorney because I want to help people. And he said, how do attorneys help people? He said, it just reminded me, he said that. He's like, attorneys don't help people. Yes, I do. I was arguing. I was probably all of 10. I also said I was going to go to Harvard. But you know, I don't know where I got these from. I was young. I was so young, and I knew what high school I was going to go to. I knew what college I wanted to go to by the time I was like 7. And, and so I don't know how. So since I'm not going to Harvard yet, I've decided definitely law school. But yeah, I think for me, service has always been a part of me. So one of the things, and how I got involved in the junior league and some of the organizations that I volunteer with now, is because I was so burnt out, and I said I need something I need some fulfillment when I came down here to Atlanta, and serving others fulfills me. Now there's one thing when you do it for a job, right? For work. that is my calling, my passion. I love taking care of sick people. The angrier and the more they're going through something, the more I want to take care of them and the more patient I am, because I understand that we're meeting people at their worst point in life, right? They've gotten some news that they really don't understand, or are dealing with some things that they never thought they would have to deal with. So that's one part of it, and you can kind of compartmentalize that. But the rest of my life, just wanting to give back and not getting anything in return necessarily, except the gratitude and the smile of maybe a child or someone in need. That is what filled me up and said, okay, I can go back, and now I can go back to work, especially during the pandemic, because we were people. I mean, as an RT, and you probably can relate to this, we're the, like I said, the Batman. We're the rescuers. Like, they call us, we fix it. We're like, hey, RT to the rescue, And to have so many patients that we could not figure out what to do and how to stabilize them was heartbreaking. And watching my fellow therapists, nurses, PAs, physicians just crying, like outside rooms, crying because we're so short staffed, or calling me in the middle of the night saying, hey, we don't have ventilators, we don't have high flows. Like, that was so traumatic. People don't really understand. I think we all suffer from PTSD from that. Like I literally would go out in my, like, leave my office, go in my car and just cry my eyes out. So I needed something to give back. And that's how I started. I reached out to one of my other friends and said, hey, listen, I need to volunteer. I need to be around other people. I need to connect. What should I do? And she said, hey, you should join this organization I'm in.
That is amazing. You're so cool. Like,
I have a friend who's even cooler, like, and I'd shout her out, but she always, and if she sees this, which she is going to see this, she's going to know who she is, because I think she's in every organization with an alphabet. Like, that's part of the alphabet. I told her, I said, you're in every organization known to man. But that's who I want to surround myself with. People that want to give, that want to do things, and are happy when they're serving.
so who do you look up to? Like, who's your inspiration?
So it's surely Beyonce, but let me tell you. Like, even knows I am a huge Beyonce fan.
Okay.
So Beyonce, if you see this, just so you know, I have my Renaissance and my Cowboy Carter gear. Whenever you need to tap me, I'm ready. No, seriously. So I think for me, it was my parents, like my dad before he passed away. Definitely, he was one of my heroes, one of my inspirations. Just him wanting me to be better. My stepmom, who is still alive, also helped guide me, especially in my formative years. And as I got older, she's 95, bless her heart. So yeah, that she's definitely one of my heroes. She was the first person that taught me how to love unconditionally, because when she decided to take me in, it wasn't easy for her. And so, to raise another child, like, she was in her 60s, and it's just like, wait a minute, okay, now we got this kid, what are we gonna do? And for her to take me in. So I've always told her, I don't know, I'm at 40 something now, and I have an adult child. I don't know if I'd want to start over. It's like, you're free as a bird. It's just like, I know. But her, my sister, one of my other sisters, just watching her, she's a cancer survivor. And she's been 10 years, yesterday, made her 10-year anniversary. And so just watching her and knowing what she had to do, being a woman of color growing up, and then looking at how healthcare was for her, versus how it is for us as healthcare executives. There's still not that many of us in really high level leadership positions, but watching her get, battle that. And so definitely she's one of my top. Outside of that, I would say some of my other friends. I'm going to say, like I said, I have a friend, Jennifer. She's like, I look up to her and my friend Adrian. They're very ambitious, goal-oriented women, and they're very strategic. They have their lives kind of really mapped out well. Better than I, they'll joke with me. No, Jessica, no, seriously, I really think they are. And then my pastor, my apostle, and his wife, she opened up a school, and she's a principal, and she just took like 15 students to Europe this past like spring break, so last month. Um, Definitely, those are the people that are around me that I look up to.
And you also mentioned your church. So, how did you find this church?
So Junior League, right? Back to
Mhm.
that organization. I was talking to someone. So I went to one of the events that I had just signed up, and I was we were doing like a brunch. It was kind of get to know the new prospective members and things like that. And I struck up a conversation with the young lady. And interesting enough, her aunt was the first lady of my former church in Chicago.
Oh.
And she was like, "Hey, well, if you're looking for some place, this is the place." And then I went to a couple services, and I fell in love, and the rest was history. So shout out
Uh,
to Embassy City,
because
right here in Powder Springs.
I'm looking for a church since I moved, and I haven't been like, I don't know. I think it's like dating. You
It
have to
is.
find the one that's right for you.
So let me say this. The one thing I love about my apostle and all of Embassy City is we embrace everyone. But they're definitely a great place if you're a creative, if you're an entrepreneur, if you're just looking for a place that there's no judgment. We love you, and we're gonna love on you, and we're gonna pour into you. That's what I was looking for. And happiness, just joy. When you walk in and you meet people, they're just happy to see you. That's amazing.
Wow, that is amazing. And I know there's a lot of listeners who might not be Christian or they might not
Sure.
be religious or spiritual, but how, I would say, because I know that church is a building and God is in the church. So how do you reconcile like God as the all powerful and having a church, like the church in the building? I don't know. Do you understand what
Oh,
I'm saying? Like,
so the physical and the spiritual and the supernatural. So
yeah.
one thing I would say, the scientist in me always says, because as an RT, drowned in science courses. I think it was either Neil deGrasse or Hawkins that said you can't confuse the two. You can't put, you can't get God and science in the same. It's not going to work. So your faith has to take over, right? And so my faith says. So I take that out of it. As far as the church, though, church is wherever you are, wherever God is, wherever you want to worship, however you want to worship. That's where God is. So I think the most important thing is to understand that your temple is here. It's your soul, and whether you're religious, whether you believe in God, doesn't matter. You know that inside of you is how you interact with other people. So when I look at other people, um, I say my belief in God is expressed by the way I treat His people, and everyone is his. Like everyone, whether you believe or not, you're human, right? So how I treat other humans is a reflection of my spirituality. Um, so that's how I reconcile the church, physical church, with the supernatural. But as far as God being all knowing, all seeing, that's a different conversation, different subject. But at the end of the day, like I said, everyone is everyone has their own self to be responsible to. So, can you go to sleep at night? Can you rest? Can your mind rest at night with who you are as a person? You don't necessarily need some entity to tell you that you're a good or bad person. You kind of know that on the inside. Um, how you feel about yourself and how you feel about how you treat other people. Most of us do, unless there's other issues. My disclaimer to that is, unless you have other mental health disorders or things like that, for the most part, we know who we are inside.
That's like Sila. Sila moment. Take a minute to think about that. So I wanted to ask you again, or a different question. Well, I just start off with my story. I too was triggered by COVID. Like I already had other underlying issues, and I was just like really trying to hold it together, and then COVID
Mm,
just it just kind of like broke me, and I feel like it was my breakthrough, not a
yes.
breakdown. And like, have you ever had one of those moments where you like were rock bottom, and how did you get up from
Oh goodness. So I probably have had a couple of those, but yeah, there's one that particularly sticks out, and you know you can't stay there. But the beautiful thing about hitting rock bottom, or what we perceive as rock bottom, right? There's no place up to go but up. you know. Um, so I'm always a half, glass half full type of person. And I may cry for a minute. And I remember my dad used to say his words of wisdom. A couple things. He had rules. Don't make your problems my problems. Don't come here to my home and bring my mood down because you're upset about something. And then the second was, well, what are you going to do about it? And it's like, what do you mean? I'm having a breakdown. And he's like, yeah. There are no such things as problems, only solutions. You
that?
are the problem's there. The problem's that you don't need to sit there and keep harping on the problem. What is your solution to it? So when I find myself in situations where I feel like, okay, I don't know what to do, that's when it's scary. But there's always something to do, even if it's, ask for help, if it's reach out to someone. Couch time always. I'm a big proponent on mental health and mental wellness, right? So even if you think life is okay, sometimes you need to talk to someone outside of your circle. So I'm a big proponent of going, and I know in the Black community we don't always do that. I go specifically and seek help when I'm feeling a certain type of way, or I think I need to talk things out. So that's one. And then as far as one situation where I was like, I felt hopeless. That's where my faith steps in, and that's why I tell people, whatever you believe in, you if you have something to hold on to, something to grab to, um, and then also it helped that I had an education, as my dad always said to me. They can take a lot of things from you, but they can't take what's in here, what's in your head and what's in your heart, who you are as a person, and the knowledge that you have. So as long as you have a skill, a knowledge base, you can rebuild. And material things, the one thing I will say about losing everything, you learn that material things aren't that important. You kind of prioritize what is important. So yes, while it's inconvenient to lose everything, and I'm not suggesting that, you do understand that as long as you have your health, as long as you're on this side of, the dirt, as they say, this side of, this side of heaven, then you have an opportunity to change your situation. And I think back to Maya Angelou, if you can't change your situation, change how you think about your situation, right? And that's what's always gotten me through.
That's amazing. And I know you said like your faith has a real important part of your living and helping people, and
Yes.
volunteering fills your cup. Like, oh, you're so awesome.
Oh, no. Don't get me wrong. There's other parts. There's layers to everyone, right? So there's other things that I do for fun that my apostle would probably go, but I like to have fun. I like to dance. So even if you go on my TikTok or my Instagram, you'll see me dancing. You'll see me by the beach, in the pool. I love water. So you also have to do things that fulfill you as a person. And it's not always about other people. Sometimes you have to be selfish, and I am a proponent of being selfish, but I like to dance. So you'll see me
Okay.
dancing all the time. I still, as they say, got my Megan knees. So
You got the Megan
I
knees.
got the mega knees. No, that's all.
Oh, snap. I gotta see that.
So, you have to have fun. So that's the biggest thing. You gotta, life is gonna life. Um, you just have to kind of say, okay, am I gonna let the wind beat me, or am I gonna let the wind push me?
Am I gonna let the wind beat me or am I gonna let the wind push? Hmm. So, talking about the future, um, what are like your dreams and goals that you want to
Oh goodness, the future. So get out of law school, make it out of law school, sane. Um, Funny story. They gave us the statistics of how many people end up as alcoholics and drug users, and the suicide rates for doctors or people in med school and law school, and then physicians and attorneys. And I was just like, oh my goodness. So definitely, when I say this, I truly mean that. But future state, I would love to probably move. Well, I don't know if I want to leave Georgia. I love Georgia, so I stay in Georgia. Probably get a move into a little bit larger home. There's nobody here, so don't ask why. Just get some more dogs and cats. I have a dog and a cat now, so get some more animals. Um, my dream would be on a ranch. I know it's weird. I always wanted a cattle ranch, uh, or horses. And I think write a book definitely is on my list, short term future list. Um, and then maybe to eventually get back to during the pandemic or right when the pandemic hit, I was supposed to go to China. So I really want to finish that and go to Africa. So those are kind of like my future state plans.
Wow. And I actually volunteered. I helped with open heart surgeries in Nigeria. And it
Oh,
was,
that's
yeah, it was like an amazing experience. Like, we helped with, I helped like extubate the patients after the
so
surgery.
cool.
And I was there for a week and it was very eye opening about how privileged we are
Oh
and
yes.
how like they're like the hospital was brand new, but we were in a small little village and everyone was hustling and there were guards
Mm.
everywhere. It was very
Art.
yeah, yeah, we
Okay.
had
No.
guards.
Okay.
And the foundation is called the Voom Foundation,
Ooh.
VOOM, and I had a great experience, and it was just very eye opening. And I think I would love to go back, but
Do that.
I was the only there were only two RTs there,
Everybody
and
else, nurse, doc.
yeah, nurses and doctors and anesthesiologists and perfusionists. So it was just like I bet if there was like more RTs, it would be a better experience. I was doing like 24-hour days. I was like, I've never done
Oh,
that
we
before.
go with another RT. Go with another RT. You can sign me up. I know a couple other RTs that would go. Um, yeah, that is a cool experience. Kudos to you, though. You for
Thank
that.
you. Thank you. Yeah, I love to help people too. And sometimes when I help people, I kind of neglect myself. So I'm working on helping myself because like my book, I have my book here. And on the cover, it says for healthcare workers who are tired of being a hero for others and now need to be a hero for themselves.
Mm.
So I know that when COVID was happening, we everyone was calling us a hero, like you're on the front lines. And I realized in that moment, after I had my breakthrough, that I needed to basically like save myself and
Yeah.
Like, I know that it was a spiritual experience, and I was surrounded by, it was like it was very interesting.
Oh, that
and
is.
and I just, I don't know, because at that moment I was so exhausted and so like tired. Like, I was so tired. Like, I said, like, out loud, like, I'm so tired, but I don't want to die. Like, it was just like
Mm,
really, really close
that's
to
powerful.
me, really
That's
close.
powerful.
Thank you. Like, it was just like, I was like, is this it? Like, is this all there is to life? Like, back and forth with the patients, and even with my past history, like, I've had like trauma in the past,
Yeah.
and dealing with all of that stuff. Like, I was at really low vibration, and no
Uh
one
oh. The
and no one like noticed, because I have this such bubbly personality and I'm
Yeah.
smiling all the time. So I just wanted to know, like, you've already talked about like the things that are happening. Like, what would you say to a healthcare worker who is burned out, and they're
Hmm.
basically at the end of their rope and they don't know what their options are?
Um. So definitely there are options. There's always options. There's always help available. Whether it's through your employer assistance program, through crisis counseling, if you're in a church or you have some type of religious structure, but specifically for us as healthcare workers, there's a pastor, a chaplain, and they're all denominations. They even have some that are non-denominational. They have um, outlets for you. But you need to talk to someone. You have to be willing to make the first step and say, the first thing is to admit to yourself that I need help. Because a lot of times we don't say that to ourselves. We don't admit that we're drowning. We say we can handle it, we can juggle it, or we feel guilty about not being able to juggle everything.
Mm,
Or sometimes it could be just as simple as something triggered you and you're like, I just don't know why I'm not feeling well. I'll give you a good example. I had interviewed for a position, and
okay.
I I did great on the first interview. The face to face interview, I bombed it. I don't I,
Oh.
and it was interesting because it was something that I could do in my sleep, right? And
Hmm.
I could not understand why I didn't do well on the interview that day. And then it dawned on me that it was the anniversary of my brother's death, of my ex-husband's death. Um, and all of those emotions I had pushed down, and they manifested in an unhealthy way because I couldn't concentrate. I couldn't answer fully. I couldn't really think about the questions, but I couldn't figure out what was blocking me.
Yeah.
And as a healthcare worker, imagine if I was taking care of a patient, right? This was just an interview. So we don't always think that, yeah, I didn't think it was bothering me,
Mm,
but I should have taken the time to check myself and say, hey, you probably shouldn't go meet anybody today. You should block off your calendar for the next couple of days and say, this isn't a good day for me. Um,
mhm,
so you don't always have to be strong. You don't always have to take on every burden. And yes, we're heroes. Yes, we wear capes in our imagination. I'm Wonder Woman. Um, but Wonder Woman also had some, like in the comic books, they lose their superpowers occasionally, or they find themselves in a situation where they're like, oh goodness, they don't always win in the end. Yes, eventually they get there, but they have to go through some things. And I think we have to give ourselves grace. It's okay to not be okay.
And there is such, what do you think we can do to build like trust and transparency? Because there's such a stigma to admitting in healthcare that you're not okay. Like, how can we build a better future so that people can be more open about what they're
So
struggling with?
So I remember I asked for, during the pandemic, I was working in a specific health system, and I reached out to our psychology department and our mental health services and said, hey, what can you do? And I remember them walking around to some of the departments, and they did sound, I don't even know what to call it, Reiki, whatever. It's with the sound.
Yeah.
Please, whoever hears this, I'm not trying to be, I just don't know the proper term for it, but I think it's Reiki. But I remember saying to them and to the team, I made sure all the EAP posters were up in every department, in the bathroom. I would go talk to the staff and say, it's okay. The first thing that we have to do is we have to admit that it's not just the pandemic. It was pre-pandemic. I mean, we see things happen every day, but we're supposed to be like when someone passes away, or I work at a grief counseling and they use the word death. That's not something that we typically say in healthcare. We say the person transitioned, right? But the fact that we see that every day, we come in contact with that every day, but we also come in contact with birth and life and love and people getting better. But there are all of these different emotions and different things, yet we take out the health and healing and the emotional and the mental wellness from the actual caregiver. We separate that. Like we're supposed to have this compartment in our brain that goes, okay, I'm not human, I'm a healthcare worker. We can't do that. We have to break those barriers down and understand that all of our healthcare employees are also caregivers.
So what's the difference between like a caregiver and a healthcare
worker?
Worker, yeah.
Yeah. So someone's that's going to work and getting a job, right? Well, let me say this. Everybody that you come in contact with, a caregiver, we typically use those terms for their family members, right?
Yeah.
But if you've been taking care of a patient for a day or two, or a week, in our case, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 4 weeks, depending on how long their stay, months, we then become attached. We know the family. We know the brother and the sister. We know what time the mom gets off work and is going to come up to the hospital. We begin to know them. They begin to know us, right? And what we're doing for their family member is not just giving them medication, not just checking the ventilator, not just changing the tube. We're taking care of them and we're helping them and their family get through some of the hardest parts of their life. So we also have that take on that stress, and we take on that feeling of, hey, we're trying to help this family get better. And sometimes we take on the guilt if they're not getting better, because we know before the family knows a lot of times that things are taking a transition. How do we now have this conversation? How do I go into this room and tell the family that I'm going to have to, I'm going to be the one to do the compassionate care transition, right? We take that on, and then there's no one for us to decompress that with. So that's what I say. What we're doing is, as they call it, healthcare, right? But healthcare worker versus caregiver. I think we're caregivers.
And I think we need sometimes, like from my perspective, like I need to give the care that I give to others. I need to do that to myself.
Yes.
And be patient with myself, because life is a journey, and life is a marathon. Yes. Like you, it's not a sprint based on like how fast you can go. It's based on how long you can live that out. And
yes.
That's
unless you're like me, who just, who's impulsive and just jumps up and does stuff. No.
You have like sprint moments.
We all do, though. That's the thing about life. It's all cyclical. So you're going to have those moments where you're like, this is not what I envisioned for myself. And then you're going to have other moments where you're like, man, I have this great opportunity to change my trajectory. But that's the one thing, like you said, we don't give ourselves grace and patience. Like sometimes we can be more patient with other people. I find myself doing that. I'm harder on myself than anybody else. Other people say, "Oh, girl, you're doing fabulous," and I'm looking at my grade and I got a B, and I'm like, I should have gotten an A, or I should be doing more. I should be further in life. But then you ask yourself, well, who are you comparing this to? Like, why are you comparing yourself to anyone else? This is, like you said, your marathon, your journey. So the only person you can compare that to is you, and you haven't gotten there yet. So
And I just remember I've had some like patients who are older. So my
yeah,
history, like I've been at the birthing center, like grabbing a baby out of
oh,
the
that's fun.
vagina and and like
It's fun part.
pony them everywhere and like trying to vigorously make them wake up. And then I've been at the other spectrum where I've been like holding like
Yeah.
the patient's hand as they transition. So like to see the circle of life, like
Yes,
literally, it's like I feel like I'm like at the front seat of like destiny. Like,
you
do
are.
you feel that?
I do. And that's what I was talking about when we talk about like sometimes the decompression for us, because we see so much. You see the joy, the pain, the fear, um, that first reaction when somebody's given some devastating news, or the joy, that first moment when they see their baby for the first time. That, we see it all. Um, and that really is where, we have this roller coaster wave of emotions that we go through during the day. Um, like, 1 minute we're talking, the next minute we're in a code. Um, so I definitely will say that that's why I gauge everything. And I tell people this in business: I prioritize like no other, because I've been an RT when it comes to things, and not getting worked up about it, because it's like, you know what? This is not a life and death
The
situation.
situation.
I have literally been in a life and death situation, and this ain't it. So, with that being said, like on the scheme of things, this is here. And there are some things that are here.
Wow. Yeah. So, is there anything you would like to leave with the audience as your final words?
Love yourself. Um, and not just the superficial, yeah, I love myself, I say that in the morning. No, I mean love on yourself, right? Give yourself grace to be who you are and to be vulnerable. One of the things that I've learned to say, even to myself, is, hey, you haven't truly shown who you really are, right? And maybe there's layers of me that I'm still getting to know, but I want to share those with you, and I want to share this journey with you. So tell your loved ones that, hey, I want to be more of who I am. And enjoy finding who that is. Even at 40 plus, um, I'm still learning who I am. I'm still getting to know me. Um, because at every point in your life, there's something different. Like now I'm an empty nester. So I'm getting to know who Jessica is as a mom that has an adult child. Um, so that is, just learn who you are and love who you are and love on yourself.
Love it. That is a great way to end this episode. Thank you so much, Jessica, for
Thank you
agreeing
for
to be
having me.
on Scrubs Unzipped. I hope you had a great time.
I did.
And we will see you later.
All
Thank
right.
you.
Thank you. Bye bye.